Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for coming. It's lovely to see you here in person and both virtually. So today we're meeting for our October meeting of the County Joint Accessibility Committee. Has everyone had an opportunity to receive the agenda? You've got it? Great. And so let's do our quick little roll call. Shall we have everyone just say their names or?
Sure, by
Yeah.
all means.
So maybe we can just start around the room with Lisa.
Lisa Shell, present.
Jennifer Dayu,
Cease Ryle.
And in Dykstra.
and Anne, I see you too. I don't know if Anne, can you hear us? I'm not sure if she can hear us. Anne, can you hear us? Well, I see her there, but I don't know if she can hear. So we're missing Ashley and
Ashley, I think, has joined us.
oh, and there's Ashley. She's just come in and Ashley's here too. Okay, great. So we've got everyone. Still just wondering if Anne can hear us. Anne,
I'm gonna send her an email.
yeah, that would be great. Ashley, good to see you. Can you hear us? No, I don't think so. But Ben can. It's an odd. Should we? We'll just take a minute to try to resolve this. Should we try again? Do you think they're back in yet? Anne and Ashley, are you able to hear us now? No. Ben, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can still hear you. Perhaps they might be muted.
No, we can hear you just fine, thanks.
No, but they might be
Oh,
muted is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, they're not acknowledging being in our orbit. But for two, Anne and Ashley, are you picking up anything? No.
Sorry, I just got my computer to work for some reason. I couldn't hear anybody.
Okay.
But I just got logged on, so I missed it.
That's great. So you can hear us now, can you? Ashley? Excellent. Okay.
Yep.
And Anne, can you hear us now? No, I don't think so. Let's just give it another minute. Looks like she's going to try to come back in. Actually, we're just struggling all around with a bit of tech issues, so just bear with us while Anne comes back in. Hi, Anne, can you hear us now? No, can you hear us now? Huh. Did someone pop a Zoom message in?
I sent an email, but not in Zoom.
Okay. And she did.
No, I moved her to the attendee back to table.
So Anne, any luck hearing us, Anne? suggest that to her to turn up? You did? Well, I might proceed gingerly through the next couple of points on the agenda and hopes that by the time we get to the more substantive things, she can show that she's with us. Okay. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. May I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Schell, thank you.
Moved by Councillor McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Schell. Be it resolved that the October 11th, 2023 Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee agenda be approved.
All in favor? And on the screen, are you in favor? Yes. Ben, are you in favor? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. And Anne is still struggling. I'm seeing grimaces. Okay. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. And we will just touch base with Anne on that before when she's in. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes, and are there any questions or concerns with those? In that case, could I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes? Councillor Ryall and Councillor McKechnie.
Moved by Councillor Ryle, seconded by Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the minutes of the June 14th, 2023 meeting of Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? And on the screen, Ashley and Ben, are you in favor? Yeah. Great. Great. So off to down to correspondence. Did you want to take us through this item, Mr. Richard?
Sorry, I'm emailing with Kath or with
Anne?
Anne.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. No,
Apologize.
take a minute.
Um,
Let's see if we can get her in.
you want me to just carry on?
Well, you
Well-
say if you're emailing. with
Well,
her,
I'm-
do you
I'm
need to-
finished
you're
now,
finished?
but
Okay,
yeah.
so we might just keep on going
So-
gently.
So this is just a news release from the province where they're celebrating National Disability Employment Awareness Month. They do identify a number of programs and some best practices in other communities to where communities are making efforts to connect people with disabilities with well-paying jobs and good meaningful training. So yeah, it's really just for information purposes, but some really good things happening out and about.
Wonderful. Any comments or thoughts related to that? And do we have you back? I'm not sure we do. Any sign of life, Anne? Not at a minute. Okay, well. Any thoughts then on that piece of correspondence? Anything to add? So we've got a resolution, I think, to
We do.
receive. Could I have a resolution, a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence? Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Schell.
Moved by Councillor McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Schell. Be it resolved that the Joint Accessibility Committee acknowledges receipt of the October 3rd, 2023 correspondence. Ontario celebrates National Disability Employment Awareness Month.
All in favor? And that's carried. Great. So slipping down to new business, we've got a couple of really interesting things to look at. And I think the site plan accessibility checklist, is that something to be folded into our conversation on the multi-year joint accessibility plan, or how do you want to
I
roll
think,
with that?
yeah, I think it is part of it. We wanted to make sure that we brought an example forward, and so I was at a meeting of the clerks from Eastern Ontario in September, and this is something that Prince Edward County is doing. And we had a member on our previous committee, Jim Miners, who was very knowledgeable about site plans and the kind of things that were required. But we always just sort of made it up as we went along. And so what I really liked about this when I saw it was, it sort of guides the committee through what questions you should be asking, and helps you make suggestions to the developer of the property. So we're hoping that we could do a similar one for the committee that would assist you in reviewing site plans, which is a big part of your work. And but we wanted to get your opinion on this one before we just steal from Prince Edward County. So so we wondered if you had any suggestions on how it could be improved or work better for you.
And then my first question would be, is it something that would be housed within this committee exclusively, or is it something that we might present to lower tier in hopes that it might become a bit of an operational element?
Absolutely. We would work with them just so they know what to expect when they come here even.
Right. Yeah. Yes, Councillor Rail.
Well, what we could do with it too is, first off, I like what I'm saying, but once a municipality has said, hey, I've got a project I want to go, we could automatically say, okay, fill this thing out as you're going to present to us. That way you'll already have the answers before we get started.
Mhm.
So if there's something they've missed, they say, oh, we need to address that because they're going to ask us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Has anyone had an opportunity to go through this in detail and with the desire of making comments on it now, or now that you know what we might do with it, is it something that you might want to take away and bring comments back at the next meeting? I think it's a really great document, and I'd hate to rush comments on it. But if you've already had a chance, yes, Councillor Rail.
One of the things I looked at, and I'm sure if we were to spend time, we'd find more and more things to add. But if it's a dynamic thing, and we won't know that until we do the first project using it, why don't we adapt it? It's R&D, Mike, Rob, and duplicate.
Mhm.
So if we took this and standardize it a bit towards us, and let's use it at our next review and see if there's anything missing, it would come up in the comment section automatically. And then we can decide whether we want to add it as a point. Does that make sense?
I hate
Yeah.
to admit it because I never like to give you credit, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, do we have Anne? I saw a chuckle. Anne, do you hear us now?
Yes, I do.
Yay, welcome. So we just went through all the basic bones of our agenda so far. May I ask you, do you have any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? You're the only one I wasn't able to ask. Anne? No, nothing. Okay,
Nope.
that's great. Okay, good. So looking to others for thoughts on, are there things I think that's a brilliant idea, but are there things that you might wish to make a comment on now regarding this checklist, or do you want to think about it and bring it back and we'll apply it the first time? How would you like to move forward with this checklist?
I think it's a great idea to give it a try for the first time, and then you're going to see sort of how useful it is. I think that's a really good idea, because you never know until you start putting things in practice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do too.
Well, one thing I did notice in the interior accessibility is countertops in a kitchen are not addressed.
Right. Okay.
That's the only thing I saw. Because they should be slightly lower, right? Otherwise you're cooking up like here.
I've got a question for all of you on something that I don't see here that struck me as quite appropriate and obvious when I read it for the first time when we were doing some redesign work on our private business, and that is the idea of universal accessibility. So it isn't just accessibility for folks who are challenged with mobility or whatever it might be, but it's universally accessible. So when you walk into a space, you don't even really feel that there are these design considerations. It's there for everybody. And I wonder if that's something that either just even in the title we could consider, or just as almost a spirit or ethos point. Have you designed this in such a way that you almost don't notice that it's universal, that it is so universal it's almost ubiquitous? I probably didn't explain myself well on that, but I really liked doing that for our business.
They have a thing called, I did my master's in what they call inclusive design. Pardon me, I'm just jumping in. I did have my hand up. We have a thing called inclusive design, which is exactly that. It's designing so that all designs can be sort of almost personalized for somebody. Therefore, it does not become an issue. Are you a disabled person or not?
Right.
So inclusive design is taking over more now from the word accessibility, which is a little bit overused and is not always clear to people. But inclusive design is a new term that people are coming out with, which is more personalization, designing with sort of personalization in mind. I always liken it to, everybody can get a pair of one size fits all, stretchy pants that really fit nobody. But if you put an elastic waistband in it, then you have a little bit more of an idea that you can personalize it for somebody without it being different for somebody who has a disability. So you're not buying disability pants or regular pants, right? That's the idea.
Yeah, so that's something that would be good to bear in mind in it too. Yes, Councillor Rail.
After I said we should try it without doing anything, now I've come up with something. What to do? One of the things we talked about here, it says clear signage identifying entrance. We're a pretty dynamic country and we're bilingual in English and French. I'm wondering whether we should include Braille.
What do others think about that?
I agree with Anne about using universal design versus universal disability, because there are certain things we will be implementing at the moment as sort of a trial and error sort of basis. You might want to try putting some stuff in, seeing how it works, and then you may have to take it out and then try putting something else in there. For example, you may find that Braille works in this building for a little bit, but then it might not work due to the majority not needing to use Braille. So I think universal design fits better than universal disability because it's not one size fits all. You never know who's going to walk into our business. You never know what disabilities someone might have. So I think universal design might fit better than universal accessibility because you just never know.
Yeah, no, good point. So would, as part of that, would putting Braille on the sign outside be one of those iterative, I dare I say experimental, to see if that it works for the folks coming into our business? Is that something that people would support as a recommendation?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so why don't we capture that and see where that goes? Anything else just off the hop? All right, well, why don't we give it a try? Let's rob and duplicate and then refine and then send it back to Prince Edward County and say, look, we've made it better.
They would, they're pretty arrogant. I don't know. No, I'm kidding.
And certainly, I'd be, although this is a primary interest to this committee, it would be so great if at a certain moment we did send this down to the lower tier in case they would consider more of a common operating procedure, standard operating procedure approach to looking at this themselves, rather than waiting for a committee to tell them how to do it. But it's a really, really good checklist of things to remember. It would be nice to see it become an SOP wherever possible.
And would you like that in the motion?
Well, I don't know. What do others think of that?
I like it a bit because it sends a message that we are, even if people are not using it as much as we expect, it sends a message saying that we are in an inclusive community.
Right. Sure. So let's include it. Mike, do you want to tell us more or less what it says before I ask for a mover and a seconder, just to?
So basically, we're acknowledging receipt of the plan from Prince Edward County, or the checklist. That a site plan checklist be presented to committee at a future meeting for to be used as a trial with a site plan review in the near future. And finally, that the draft be forwarded to local municipal staff for review and comment.
Would you forward the draft, or should we give it a couple of kicks before we put a refined version out?
I mean, certainly they're the practitioners often. So they're the ones who are actually developing the parks, the playgrounds, they do the review of buildings that are, before we ever see them.
Yeah.
They see them at the planning stage.
Mhm.
I think it would be useful to get their comments prior to,
To get their comments,
Um,
I see, rather than,
and then,
yeah,
yeah, just have them review it and then send it back to us
Okay.
with comment.
that's a great idea, yeah. Mhm. May I have a mover and a seconder for that then? Councillor McKechnie, Councillor Shell, great. And really, and all members of the public, you're very, very welcome to move and second these. We're all equal members of the committee, so do raise your hand if you see fit.
Did you need me to read it again?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Moved by Councillor McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Shell. Be it resolved that the County Joint Accessibility Committee acknowledges receipt of the accessible design checklist for site plan review from Prince Edward County, and that a site plan checklist be presented to committee at a future meeting that can be used as a trial with a site plan review in the near future. And finally, that the draft be forwarded to local municipal staff for review and comment.
All in favor? Great. That's carried. Yeah, that's an exciting concrete piece. It's nice to have something really tangible there. So well found. Thanks, Mike. So our next item on the agenda is the multi-year joint accessibility plan, which is up for review. Do you want to take us through that as well?
Sure. So the plan is now at the end of its life, and so it is a mandatory requirement that we have this plan in place. So we're a little behind, but I think it needs to be finalized by the end of the year. So I think we're in a position where we can meet those deadlines. The plan itself is really in two pieces. There's a narrative, which I think is still largely relevant, and it has some guiding principles and some philosophy and some commitments generally to making our community more inclusive. And then there are a number of projects included that are often our local municipalities have sent, which is all about making our operations more inclusive as well. So we have provided the most up-to-date information that we can. I believe there's a couple amendments that came in recently from one of our local municipalities that are in addition, but I guess what I would propose is that staff work on a revised plan using the narrative where it is still relevant, and then incorporating the new projects. we would remove the projects that were completed as part of the last plan. We do keep them in for the life of the plan because I really think it is important to celebrate our successes and see where we have made some accomplishments. And then we would propose to, depending on the outcome of our next, my other staff report, we propose to bring that draft document back to committee at our November meeting, where you could review it, and then ultimately it's County Council's document to approve. So you would make a recommendation to County Council that the draft plan as presented would be approved and become our multi-year accessibility plan. So I guess that's really we'd love your thoughts on that. You can either provide those now or through the month, but as I say, our plan is to sort of develop a new draft over the coming month, and then or month and a bit, and have that for your review at the next meeting.
Any questions?
I don't know if it's the wrong thing at all, but is the new Fleming residents going to be included? Because they may be a good candidate to fill out the little checklist, right? You know, the Fleming residents, it's a, yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the project. I'm not sure. We haven't seen it here yet.
Okay.
So we haven't been approached with that yet. I'm not sure. Has that been to Dysart Council, the Fleming residents?
Yes.
So I'm assuming we will see it soon.
Okay, because that might be a nice one. I don't know if they
Yeah.
have any accessible units.
Yeah, we'll
in
follow
there.
up on that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So the question that I think I would have, Mike, is what are your thoughts on how to take these, so looking at the previous draft, there's some good thoughts there, there's good intentions there, not a ton of concrete stuff. And I hear what you're saying, that there are projects that can be brought into the new draft. But what about things like key performance indicators or scorecards, or how we measure our progress, or who's going to be responsible for overseeing this? Or, you know, what can we do that we can sink our teeth into that sort of bridges the intentions, which are very beautifully laid out, and real concrete results through the projects?
Those are tough questions. You don't look sorry for that at all. I think those are, I mean, key performance indicators and how we measure our success are that's a challenge we've had over the last number of years in all of our departments. And so it's a conversation we've had a lot. I would really love it if the committee could help us identify what those key performance indicators are. I don't think we necessarily need to include them in our document, but one of our goals in our document could be to develop key performance indicators where we can track success. And that could actually be a goal in our multi-year plan.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really important. And as I noted to the committee at our first meeting, you know, we have not been as active or as effective as I would really have liked us to be. And I think this is an opportunity to correct that.
Right. Or to even more fully assess exactly how active or inactive, or
Yeah.
because some of these things may be happening
Yeah.
automatically and not being captured.
And again, I think getting into our next report, my dad has a saying, you know, self-recommendation is a poor one. And I think that our intentions are always really good, but we're not sure if we're being successful or not. And I think one of the things, again, that I came away from that meeting, where we invite people with lived experience to come and speak to the committee, they can tell us if where we're missing the target, where we're not doing well enough, where we really need to make an effort in order to make our community more inclusive. And I think those are things where they can pinpoint those things or highlight those things for us, where we can say, hey, we're missing the target on this one. We should be measuring that as well.
Does anyone have any best practice ideas out there where we could look for some examples of this sort of KPI?
I'm just asking if there are any plans that from the previous plan, any projects that were not completed, because we're talking about revising the narrative in the New Year's plan. I'm wondering if we could revise some of the projects. So if there are none that if we were not able to finish a project in last year's plan, perhaps we could get that done in this year's plan.
Right.
That would be, we would hope to do that.
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, for sure. That's very wise. Yeah. Yes, he's,
Just, Mike, this is a question probably for you. Way back when, previous term, it was explained to us that we are a committee that makes recommendations, and we have no authority to enforce. So I'm assuming that's still in place. If we make a recommendation and the group chooses either to not use it or to modify it in a different way, do we have the ability to request an explanation?
The short answer, I believe, through you, Chair, is to say yes. I think you do. Yeah, the short answer is yes. I'm not sure. Again, we are an advisory committee, so I'm not sure, you know, how far you would want to push that, but you could certainly ask for an explanation or a reason why they didn't follow some of our suggestions.
wonderful. So if the development of KPIs is to be a goal, I think that does make sense because it you know, it is a lengthy process, or it can be. But if anyone does have any best practices that they could fire our way over the course of the coming months to support getting that rocking, that would be really helpful. I do wonder though, if in the next iteration of the plan, not as a goal, but as part of the plan, we might be able to outline the structure of how this works. So who's responsible for overseeing it, who is involved in it, those sorts of things. And I don't know, you know, is there normally a bit of a budget that comes with the, like a almost a projected budget, or how does that tend to work? Is it year by year?
Yeah, the Accessibility Advisory Committee has a budget each year. It usually includes, it's pretty limited. And when I say limited, I don't mean in the number necessarily, but in the lines, like our actions are pretty focused. So in previous years, we've had, you know, members receive a stipend. We've had some training money set aside. We've had the Augmentative and Alternative Communication Boards project. I think there's been $10,000 for project money in each year. I reviewed a draft. I think we're proposing that the $10,000 for project money stay in the budget for this year as well. At least that's a recommendation at this point. So yeah, there is a small budget. If the committee wanted to recommend a larger project that required more budget money, I think it would be important to talk about that now, so it could be included in a first draft of a budget.
Yeah, and I think that's
Recommendation to
more
council.
what I was thinking about, the larger projects, and yeah, but that would be, as you say, something that would come from the committee.
And again, it's important to distinguish between, like, many of our projects, whether, so as an example, making a park more accessible, that's a local municipal
Right.
initiative.
Yeah,
So
true.
we wouldn't necessarily have to budget for that. We
Yeah.
could make a recommendation. We could advise on how it could be made more inclusive, but we wouldn't be in a position to budget for that necessarily, or
Yeah.
or to do anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, cease.
Mike, when it comes, again, staying on the money in the budget, in Highlands East, many of our projects are top-ups. What does that mean? Well, we'll budget $5,000. And if we only use $2,000 of it this year, we'll top it up to $5,000 next year. And then if there is something that's outside of that norm, in a sense, it's a one-off, or it's a special project that we believe is necessary, then we would submit a separate request for it. Now, the other option, of course, and some of the other ones, is any surplus money left over goes into a reserve. In the case of our committee, is it a top up, or do we have money go into reserve?
We we transfer the money into reserve. That is a recommendation that's made at the end of each year to council. So when any unspent funds from that project money, the 10,000 that's the number that we've had there. Any unspent funds have been transferred to an accessibility reserve, and that's how we functioned up to now. It is not done as a right, or it's not done automatically. It's a recommendation that is taken forward to county council, usually early in the next year.
Great. Any other thoughts on this? So I think we're all looking forward to seeing what comes back. Yeah.
I had, could somebody give me an example of the kind of key performance indicators you're looking for? And that'll get me going, and I can send you an email of some potential ones that might work.
The one that sort of leapt out off the page at me are things like, I mean, and this is the easiest one, but when we talk about staff training or volunteer training, are we actually recording that we've done this? Because if we're not recording that we've done it, then it's sort of an assumption. And so that's really the most basic one, is just numbers of people that we've brought on side. And the others are far more complicated, and I wouldn't really have an example of that, but I look forward to thinking about it. Yeah.
So I just email the committee when I come up with some.
I think that would be great. But as Mike, I think, wisely recommended, if we treat this as, because we want to take it seriously, so if we treat it as not something that would be the basis of this plan, but rather something that we develop as a part of the plan, then it means we've got a bit of extra time. So we'll see, we'll have the plan in place before we really dig into the roots of the KPIs.
I would recommend that, and we will send out an email to this effect, but I would recommend, because this will be my last meeting that I attend of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So I would recommend that any emails be sent to Michelle Moore and Andrea Robinson, just to make sure that the information doesn't get lost, and they can act on it.
Great. Further thoughts on that? So the potential county initiatives. Oh, no, there's a resolution there.
Yes.
Okay, great. May I have and it's to receive and instruct, basically?
Sorry. Bear with me, I have to fill it in. Okay, so here's what I've drafted. Be it resolved that the County Joint Accessibility Committee acknowledges receipt of the 2018 to 2022 multi-year accessibility plan and related updates, and from the county and each of the 4 municipalities, and that staff be directed to update the plan as directed and present a draft at the next meeting.
Great. So on that, can I have a mover and a seconder? Cease. Anyone on the screen like to move or second? And to second, thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Great. All right, and then finally, the potential county initiatives for this accessibility plan. These are some good ideas to get us started, and you're looking to seek any further ideas to add to this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was really to stimulate conversation, not to be an all-inclusive document at all. So I've just noted a few things that we could add as goals in our next plan. But I think I've been doing way too much talking in this meeting. I think I should let the committee members tell us where we should go from there.
So to recap some of the suggestions, the inclusion of an item on each agenda at council where someone with a lived experience with disability can come and talk about their experience. And
sorry, I meant only at the advisory
only at the
committee,
advisory
not
committee,
council.
not
Yeah.
at council. Okay, I misunderstood that.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this committee, they could come and speak to the challenges they face. the checklist that we've just discussed, a review of accessibility standards and the role of the committee. This could include training suggestions for committee members and staff, the completion of the Accessible and Augmentative Communication Board initiative, absolutely. And education and awareness initiatives that would further develop an understanding of accessibility challenges. Mike, on that last point, would that be the committee that would undertake those initiatives, or would it be staff that would be undertaking those initiatives?
Yes. I think in years past, we actually committee members did a lot of the education and awareness work, and it was really effective. They understood the community, they were out and about, and often brought back information from those events that really helped us formulate a work plan. So I think the more members are involved, the better. So I would say that, yes, I would hope that both committee members and staff are involved in those initiatives, and that, yeah, it becomes a real joint effort.
Yeah, and I don't know the protocol behind this, but as you were speaking, I was thinking almost like an ambassadorial concept as well, where, for example, there was a housing seminar, a big housing conference a number of months ago, and if there were someone from the committee who was sort of assigned by the committee to go and make sure that certain thoughts were remembered in those conversations, more of an ambassadorial role.
Absolutely.
That's possible. Yeah. Any additions to the list that has been presented, or comments on the list?
I would like to volunteer myself for the ambassadorial role.
Awesome. That's great.
Just as long as we're given notice of like when I would need to go down to the housing project, as I need to let my transport know in advance.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Any thoughts on the list at all? It's pretty all encompassing. There's a lot, a lot of scope within some of those points. Yes, Cease.
Are we talking about the list that has already been posted?
No, on the
Okay.
next agenda point.
Okay. No, really good.
So we're on 11.3. So I wonder if you're still on 11.2, the second.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to get.
Okay, sure. Do you want to, we could absolutely go back a little bit.
Well, my question is, like, looking at all of these things that the various groups have done, and it says like Highland Cities completed 2018. Can we kind of sort of get that to the point where all we've got is things that we're actually working with? Because Jim Walden and a bunch of these guys are reading all this stuff, and they see the word completed, and they're both on golden. That would be something that I would like, if we could, to take the completed items, leave them on there for a reasonable period of time. But then at some point in time, remove them. And the other thing I'd like to see on this thing is when it was identified. Okay, so we have something here that was, it's ongoing. And scheduled, but when did it actually get identified and put on the list? Then we can kind of get an idea from the purposes of those that are working through this thing. We can talk, like, for instance, to people in Highlands East and say, hey, it's been on this thing though for 2 years. Like, what are we going to do about it?
Is it safe to say that this list was prepared at the inception of the plan?
Yeah, I think the decision that the previous committee made was that the items would be left on until the plan was updated. So this is sort of a final look at those projects that are going to be, and they will come off the list now. The new items will be included on there. I'm looking at the back corner where all the troublemakers hang out, and they will. I think the idea or the suggestion to include when an item is added to the list is a great one. So we'll do that. the committee can decide when you want to remove those. What's the appropriate time? Is it on an annual basis? Is it at the 5-year renewal stage? You can make those decisions. But we typically send this out annually to the local municipal staff for updates. And so, again, you can decide at that point if you want items taken off each year or as they're completed, or whether you'd like to leave them on for a period of time. My own, as I indicated earlier, I really like leaving them on for a period of time so that you can demonstrate that you're making progress and that you're actually achieving things. And so I like leaving them on for a bit, but the committee can certainly give us direction on how long you want them left there.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. In fact, that's probably a good idea, but could we then separate them into 2 categories? One part of the report is the stuff we're working on, and then there's that, hey, completed section, so that now when our staff are working on these items, they can separate the ones that they completed from the ones, because that's how we set up our work orders. And when we go through this, it's kind of hard to emphasize to someone that we need to deal with this. So and leaving it there doesn't bother me at all. It's just being able to segregate it so that we can identify the priorities from those that are completed.
Looking at the back corner, they're shaking their heads.
We're good.
Yeah, and that speaks to Ben's point as well about getting a sense of where we're at and what things are going to be carried over. And yeah, so it would be nice to have that synthesized for sure. Yeah, we didn't, when we were on that item, we didn't really take a hard look at this plan or at this action list. Are there any other comments now that we've already read the resolution? Perfect timing always. Are there any other comments or worries or thoughts on that list? Okay, so then just to wrap up the 11.3 then, are there other suggestions that the committee might have to what we've already looked at here? It is a good start, isn't it? Yeah. All right, so I think there's a resolution there. Could I have a mover and a seconder to accept these recommendations? Councillor McKechnie and Kathy, please.
Moved by Councillor McKechnie and seconded by Member Hughes. Be it resolved that Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee receives staff report CLK-24-2023, identifying potential county initiatives to be considered for the multi-year accessibility plan, and that the committee recommends that Haliburton County Council incorporate the following, or incorporate the items listed in the report into the updated multi-year accessibility plan.
All in favor? Approved. Carried. Wonderful. Thank you for that. That work to you and your staff. That's really helpful. Sets us on a good path forward. So our next meeting date is set for November the 22nd, presumably at 11 o'clock again.
It'll likely be at 1 o'clock.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
Sorry, that's our more normal starting
At
time.
1 p.m. So far, does that look all right with everyone? So if I could have mover to adjourn, please. Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Ryle.
Moved by Councillor McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Ryle. Be it resolved that the October 11th, 2023 meeting of the Haliburton County Joint Accessibility Committee now adjourn.
All in favor? Wonderful. We are so adjourned. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. Great to see your faces.